Now, once you launch your Squarespace website, the next step is looking at marketing and promoting your website. And one of the most effective ways that you can drive traffic is through posting consistently on a blog. In fact, Marcus Sheridan has a great book on this called They Ask, You Answer. If you haven't checked this out, I highly recommend you do. It will go really well with today's tutorial, where we'll be doing a deep dive into blogging on Squarespace 7.1. Now, for the purposes of today's tutorial, I'm starting with a pre-designed template in Squarespace. This one is called Pickle Perfection, and the reason I chose it is it comes with a blog, so we can click into this and see what it looks like. You'll see here we have some demo content, and we're displaying the date, the title, and a read more link. So if we click through, we're able to see the individual blog post and also navigate to the next one. So we're going to create something very similar. If we come back into our website, we go to pages. I'm going to delete this blog by hitting the bin icon. We're going to start from scratch. I'm going to come down to my not linked section until we configure our blog, click the plus icon, and under collections, choose blog. Pick a starting layout. You'll see the second one is very similar to what we just seen. You can pick any one, you can change it up anytime. We'll give our blog a name, so this could be as simple as blog, resources, learning center, whatever fits. We'll go with blog. And if we click into our blog, you'll see here we're starting with a bunch of demo content. Looks very, very similar to what we just seen. Now, to edit the blog settings, you would come up to this gear icon next to blog, and here you'll be able to adjust the page title, navigation, URL slug, make sure that this page is enabled, and then if this was a private blog or a private podcast, you could add a password and only give certain people access to it. So that's where you would set that. And then if you want to create a blog website, you could just set this as the home page. Under SEO, you would want to probably improve on this title, maybe share what this blog is about, add an SEO description, and then here you have some options to hide from search results. So you can hide all pages, all category pages, or all tag pages. If you ever want to turn that on, you could just click the toggle. Under social image, this is the image that will share out whenever you share your entire blog on social media, so you can add an image in there. I have a training on that in the description with a free template if you're interested. And then under feeds, this is where you can set your blog up for Apple News, Apple Podcasts, or if you have to replace a feed, say that you had a podcast elsewhere, you can do that in here. You would just click in and you would go through the various settings and hit connect. Now, I already have a training on podcasting with Squarespace, so I'm not going to go into that in too much detail in today's tutorial, but I'll link to that in the description below. The only thing I want to draw your attention to is if you do want to have a podcast with Squarespace or a combination of a blog and a podcast, you have to make sure your first post contains an audio link so that you can set this up and submit it to Apple Podcasts. After that, the way this will work is if your blog post contains audio, it will go forward and be submitted as a podcast. If it does not contain audio, Squarespace will recognize it as a blog post and it will just remain as such. But again, I have a training on that in the description below. Apple News, very similar. You would just put in your information. You would have to create your Apple News publisher account and then you would connect it. And again, replace feed is connected to both of those. Under advanced, this is where you will manage your categories and tags. Now we're going to look at both of those in today's tutorial, but if you ever need to manage these, you would come in here, and once you have categories, this is where you'll be able to delete them or change the names of them. If you're ever using code or CSS, perhaps you install a third-party plugin, here is where you can inject that code. You will receive instructions with that, so don't worry too much about it. You will need to be on a business plan or higher in order to use this feature. So that's your main blog settings. If we just hit save, and you'll see here we can search for items. We only have 4 demo content items just now. If you want to edit any of these posts, you just click the check and you'll see here you can come up and edit. If you hover over, you see these three dots. If we click on this, you'll see here we can bring up our individual blog settings. We can duplicate a blog post. So this is really great if you want to create a blog template. You have all your pre-made content blocks in there, and then you can just duplicate it each time so you're not having to think about all the elements to include. Or if you want to delete a post, you just hit delete. So if we hit delete on this one, and you'll see here it appears in the recycle bin. And if we click into this, we can always click the three dots again and restore it, at least for 30 days. So if you accidentally delete a blog post by accident, here's where you would come in and you could just hit restore. And you'll see here when it's restored, it will be restored as a draft. So you would have to go then and schedule or publish it depending on what you wanted to do with it. To add a new blog post, you come up here and click the plus icon, and you'll see here it appears at the top as a draft. If we hit edit, this is where we can edit an individual blog post. Now, at the time of this recording, blog posts are still using the classic editor with Squarespace, not the Fluid Engine editor. That might change in the future, but for now we're using the classic editor. So what that means is we're going to give our post a title, and you'll see if we hover over, we have these blue lines with a plus icon, and this is how we access our content block. So if we click on this plus icon, now the big difference between classic editor and Fluid Engine editor is how content is placed on the page. We can't just pull and drag it around. So if we click on text, you'll see here it takes up the full width of this section, and we can't really drag it or anything like that. So instead what we need to do is create columns with spacers. So if we click on this blue plus icon and I add a spacer and I add another spacer, these I can drag. So I can drag these to create columns. So you'll see here I've created 2 columns, and then I can drag this text up under this column so it's only going to appear here, and I can adjust it by hovering over till I find the connecting line and adjusting the sizing in here. Now this isn't ideal. Again, I don't know if they will bring Fluid Engine editor to blog posts, but for now this is how it works. So I'm going to come in to this Lorem Ipsum website and just grab a paragraph of text so we can build out a blog post and you can see what it looks like. We'll just grab this and I'll add some text. Then maybe under here, I'll hover over and I will add an image. Click to add an image. I'm going to browse stock images and use the Unsplash integration. And what I'm going to do is just search for a pickle. That makes sense, right? So we'll scroll down, find a good looking pickle. Here we go, Pickle Rick. And I can always adjust how this image looks by either hitting edit to crop it, click crop, and maybe I make it a square. There we go, save. I can also hit design and I could give it some rounded corners. So I'll click here and I can do either individual corners. I'm going to just do it overall. I'll put 30 in here. Now we have rounded edges. So I'm just adding another spacer underneath to bring this back to one column. And now I might choose to add a video. So click here, add a video, and you can either upload natively up to 30 minutes for each website, or you can click on here and you can add from a link such as YouTube or Vimeo. If you wanted to add a video from a third-party website, say it was like a TikTok or Instagram, then you would have to use the code block and embed the code. So you would come to this plus icon, search code, and you would embed the code here. Again, I have a video on this that I'll link to in the description. We'll delete that for now. And then maybe we add an audio block. So we click here, select audio, and you'll see here you can either upload the file or you can upload an external file. And you don't have to set this up as a podcast, but if you wanted to, again, you would go through all of these settings and you would add that information in. Design, we're a little bit limited, but you'll see here you can add the option to show a download link and you can choose between 2 different styles. We'll go with minimal, and then maybe we click the plus icon and we add some more text in here, and then we'll just add a line. Now to close off this blog post, I'm going to include a call to action, and my call to action might be shop products, or it could be related posts encouraging people to read through. So I'm going to click the plus icon, I'm going to select text, I'm going to select related posts, I'll type that in, change that to heading 2, I'm going to center it, keep everything the same, click off, and then underneath I'm going to click and I'm going to search for summary block. Add that in here. And if we pull this over a little bit, you'll see we can now connect this summary block to either a shop or our blog. So if I wanted to put shop products as my call to action, I would click here and link it to my store. We're going to do related posts, so I'm going to link it to my blog. And here you can select the primary metadata you want to show. So you'll see here we're displaying the date, but I usually change this to category. You can also choose tags, author, location, comments, all that good stuff. And then if you want to add secondary metadata, you can do that too. I usually leave that blank. And then under filter items, you'll see here we haven't added categories or tags yet, but once you have added categories and tags, I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. You can come in here and you can filter by the category or by the tag. And you can also choose if you only want to show featured blog posts. Typically with related posts, you would want to filter it so that you're sharing everything in the same category, because the chances are that user wants to dive deeper into that topic. Now we've got our blog post here pretty much done. What we need to do is now hit edit section in the top right hand corner. And here is where we can adjust our formatting. So we can choose our content width. So we could make it wide or narrow. I'm going to stick with medium. We can choose our text alignment. So if we want this to be centered or not. If we want the meta position to be above or below the title, this is this information here, we could do below. If we want to show our categories, so they will display here once we've added them. Date, if you want to show the date or not, you can turn this off. If you want to show the author name, so you'll see here I've got written by Chloe Forbes Kinlan. And then you can also show your author profile. So if we come down here, you'll see I've got my author profile information in there, and I'll show you how to change that in a second too. Under colors, we would choose the theme that we want to apply to our blog post. Just keep in mind this applies across all blog posts, so you can't just have one blog post using lightest 2 and the rest being lightest 1. So pick the one you want to stick with for consistency across your entire website. And then once you're done, you can hit done and save. Now we still have a few steps to take. If we hover over our blog title, this is our draft, and we click the 3 dots, we're going to select settings. And you'll see here we would want to give it a featured image. So I'm going to search for images. I'm going to find the Pickle Rick image that I added. I'm going to make that my featured image. Here I can add my excerpt. So I would want to have something like, in this post I share, and then you would include the topic and the benefit to the reader. So mine might be, in this post I share the delicious ways you can enjoy Pickle Rick Miracle Seltzer. Something like that. You can change the post URL here, so you would want to include some keywords in here so that it's easy to find and lets users know what the topic is. And then you can change the author. So if you have multiple authors on your website, you would click in here and you would change that here. Again, we'll cover that in just a moment. If your site in particular sources, you can add these in here. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, if you ever want to create a template, you can do that, and you can hit duplicate to use the same template over and over again and just change out the information. Under options, here is where you would adjust the status. So you can do draft, needs reviewed, published, or scheduled. So if we click scheduled, you'll see here I can schedule this out for a future date. And here is where we add those categories and tags. So this can be confusing for a lot of people. The way to think about it is categories are your broader topics. So these are the main topics that you discuss on your website. And your tags are like individual keywords. So when you mention a particular thing someone might be interested in, you would add that keyword as a tag. The category would be the overall topic. So if we click into categories first and we add a category, now once I've added my category, it's now assigned to my blog post. If I make a mistake and I don't want to apply this one, I would just click on it and hit delete. The same is true with tags. So if we click in, we can add a tag here. So maybe a tag would be seltzer. Another tag might be Pickle Rick. Another one might just be pickles. You can add as much as you like. And if we go back out, so we've now got our tags and our categories. We can choose if we want to add comments on. And then if you want to disable them, you can click in here and disable them after a certain date and time. And here is where you would select if the post is featured or not. And that comes in handy when we're using those summary blocks, because we can filter through to only show featured posts. So you could turn this on or off. SEO, very similar to before. We give it a title. We want to give it a good description. Make sure that when a user sees this in search results, they can see exactly what the blog post is about and why they would want to click on it. Give it a social image. Again, I've got a training on that in the description. Now under share, there's two things we can do here. If you have Squarespace email campaigns set up, you can create an email draft. So what this means is that when you publish a new blog post, Squarespace will create an email draft for you so that you can go into your Squarespace email campaigns and set it up to send out to subscribers. The other thing you can do is if you have your social media accounts connected to your website, is you can select the accounts you would like to update whenever you post a new blog post. So you'll see here I've got my Twitter account connected. If I click in here, I could say, yes, when I publish a new post, make sure to post it automatically to Squarespace. And you'll see here we can configure the message as well. And we can use these variants. %T means it's going to display the post title. We'll see that here. %U means it's going to display the URL, and we see that here. Now I can also add %A, which is author. So maybe I put by %A, and then it's going to display, as you see, my name. We can also add some basic text, so I could put new blog post, encourage people to click through. I'm going to put test blog post because I'm going to show you how this works in a second, and hit back. So you would do that for each of the accounts you've enabled. And then location is if you have a physical location, you would want to put that in because you're going to get the SEO benefits of it being ranked locally for you. So if we come back into options now and we go to status and say I just choose to publish it right away and I hit save, I'll show you how this Twitter connection works. You'll see here your blog post is now live. It gives you options to share it or create a draft in email campaigns. I'm going to hit done, and if I head on over to Twitter, you'll see here my blog post is now showing and it says test blog post. We've got our title, our link, and then by my name. So I'm going to hit delete on that for now, and you'll see that now it's published. It appears on our main blog page. Now before we look at how you can edit this blog page itself, let's look at how you can add authors. So if we come back out into pages, back out into home, and we go to settings, click permissions, and you'll see here there's an option to add a basic author. So this is if you want to have guest bloggers on your website. So you would click in here and you'll see you can add a name, their display name, you would add their first and last name for their profile, a link to their website if they have one, and you can add their bio. And that's what will display on those individual blog posts. Close that for now. Now, if you are the only contributor to your website, then it works a little bit differently. You have to come back out of your website, click onto your main profile, which will take you to your account dashboard. Click on your little avatar in the top right hand corner and select profile. And you'll see here, this is where you can adjust your profile settings. So you can add your image, your first and last name, display name, website, and your bio. Now coming back to our blog, to edit this page itself, you would come into this blog page, hit edit, and you'll see we've got our blog posts all laid out in a grid. Now if we hit edit section, you'll see here we can change out the format. So in the beginning you picked a starting layout. You can change this out here anytime. So you would click in and there's a number of options to choose from. We have side by side, masonry, basic grid, which we started with, and then alternating side by side. So pick the layout that you like best. We're going to stick with basic grid for now. Now you might have noticed as we went through that, each layout came with different settings underneath. This is one of these situations where you just have to go through and adjust them to your preference. The great thing is you can see the changes in real time, so that's really helpful. So if we come down, you'll see here we've got width. I could make that full width if I wanted. Doesn't change too much. I'll keep it inset. I might make 3 columns. I could adjust the horizontal and vertical spacing. My image placement, I can also adjust the aspect ratio here. So maybe I want a square. I could adjust my text alignment. I could choose if I want to show this excerpt or not. If I want the read more link, I could always change that, hide it. And then it's just sort of spacing with the read more spacing. And then here under metadata, we can have our categories and our secondary metadata be date, or we can just hide any of this, or we can change it to author. I'm going to put none. And then we can also choose our iconography. Now the other thing we can do here is go to colors and choose our themed section. So we could change this to light 1. Just keep in mind it's going to apply across all of your blog posts again. So I'm going to stick with lightest 1, and that's our main blog section. Clicking manage posts just brings you into your individual blog posts again. Now remember to hit done and save. Now if we hit edit again, there's one last thing I want to show you. So this is our main blog page. We've got our main posts in here, and this is using the classic editor, but you'll see here there's an option to add a section above and below our blog post collection, and this uses the new Fluid Engine editor. So if we click add section, you'll see here we can choose from any of the pre-made layouts, or we can just hit add a blank section. I'm going to click G on my keyboard to bring up my grid. Then I'm going to add a block. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm just going to add some text. I'll type in blog name. I'm going to make that heading 2, and I'm going to make it the size of the text container. That way when I drag it out like this, it's going to adjust the sizing. I'm going to click off it, click on, and center that text. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another block. I'm going to search for archive, and you'll see that overlays my blog name. We'll change that in a second. First, I'm going to hit edit by clicking this pencil icon. I'm going to connect it to my blog, and under display I'm going to change this to a drop down. I'm going to change the word archive to categories, and then I'm going to group by categories, but of course you can adjust this any way you see fit. You can choose if you want to show the group count as well. So I'm going to click off that, click on this, and I'm going to pull this in a little bit, and then I'm going to drag it underneath, and you see as I drag the rows increase. So I'm going to place that here, and I'm going to center that. The other way to increase the rows is just by clicking on this toggle at the bottom, or hitting edit section and adjusting the rows under format here. I'm going to add one more block, and this one is going to be a search bar. And again, I'm just going to pull this up. I'm going to drag this next to my categories, and I'm going to center it. Click the pencil icon, and here I can select to search a specific page, and I'm going to select blog, and then you can choose if you want it to be a light theme or the dark theme. I'm going to hit edit section here, and I'm not going to play around with this too much, but I'm going to go to background. Do I want a background? Probably not. I might change the color here, so maybe I change this to bright 2 just to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to hit G on my keyboard so I can see what that looks without the grid. Okay, so now we have a section at the top of our blog. Now before we hit done and save, we want to check what it looks like on a mobile view, and you'll see here it's a little bit messed up. I might want to adjust it a little bit. So here I'm going to click on my archive. I'm going to pull that in here. Again, I can hit G on my keyboard to see the grid here. I'm going to move this to the center. I'm going to click here, center that there. I could also pull it in a little bit. The middle, I might bring this blog name down a little bit, and then search I'll bring up, pull this container up a bit. We don't need all that extra space. And then the last thing I'm going to do is click and pull up to remove these extra rows. Maybe I want search first. Do I want search first? Yeah, I think I want search first. There we go. Once you're happy with how it looks, you'd hit G off to see and click to make sure you're still happy with how it looks on desktop, and then you can hit done and save. Now users will be able to search the blog, and they will also be able to view by category. Now one thing you might want to add to the bottom here is something like a newsletter sign up, or a contact form, or a free resource, depending on what action you want visitors to take. But overall, that's how you blog with Squarespace. Now with all of these tutorials, there's a little bit of a learning curve, and you do need to play around with it a little bit. But if you have any questions or there's anything you're unsure of, let me know in the comments below. I'm here to help in any way that I can. Hey, if you like this video, there's a good chance you'll also like this one.